Hey everyone, welcome. We're just getting everybody set up in the room right now, so bear with us as we move this along. We tried to add music last time, but it didn't work, so we get this weird silence. So feel free to say hi to everybody in the chat box if you want to, or yeah, anyway, and we will get started as soon as we've got people in here. We've got lots of people signed up today, so welcome and thanks for giving us a shot. Cheers. Welcome to the conversation. Have we managed to engage Zoom for captions? Great question, Sarah. Let me check in with our person, Anne, who's helping us run this. And we will get back to you. Hey everyone, love seeing everybody welcoming each other in the chat room. So we're just letting everybody in, and as soon as they are, we will get started. We haven't found a captioning tool yet that works, but we hope to have it ready for next session. So unfortunately, we will not have one today. Super sorry about that, Sarah. I know that's disappointing. Yeah, no, totally get it, Sarah. Thank you. Yeah, it's on our agenda. And again, yes, it's weird silence as we all come in. Google Meet has a good caption program too. Awesome, thanks. Thanks, Mildred. Lisa from Edmonton, welcome. Ron from Calgary, welcome. Lyle from Edmonton Kingsway, thanks for joining us today. I think we're up to 63 participants now, so we'll keep going here. Allison from Okotoks, thanks for joining us. Hey, Brad. Yeah, I think you're right. Charles, thanks for joining us. Darwin, Spruce Grove, thanks for joining us tonight. Welcome. Nice to see everybody saying hi in the chat room. We need to get rid of some background noise in my house. Welcome. Hi, Gary. Welcome, Scott. Welcome. Nice to see everybody joining. Dawn from Calgary. Laura from Edmonton. Yeah, how was that crazy windstorm? That looked insane. Welcome, everyone. Just so you know, we're just waiting for everybody to join here. Still got a few minutes before our official start time, and we're letting everybody in the room. So if you want to, just say hi to everybody in the chat room and let us know where you're from. We don't have a musical interlude, unfortunately.
You know, it was just sing, Emma.
Yeah, no, we don't want that. There ain't no Lady Gaga on this call, as far as I know. Leor, are you going to volunteer?
Well, I mean, speaking of Lady Gaga, if you want to do that duet from that movie, Star is Born, you can start us off. I'll
Yeah.
jump in at some point.
Yeah. I think I don't think anybody would like that. I was never known to be a singer. Hey everyone, Kaylee from the wilds of Strathcona County. John, welcome from Cochrane. Jeff, thank you. Joe, welcome. Nice to see you all. We're just getting started here, waiting for people to come in the room. Again, we've just got, oh, look at that, 4 minutes to 6. Will, welcome from St. Albert. Rock Saucer. Oh, who's Rock Saucer? There. I love some people's names on these things. It's pretty fun. Colson, hey. Matt, hello. Trevor McLeod, hello. Alan Northcott and Anita, hello from Crescent Heights. Thank you. Mike Richard from E-Town. Roy Storm, nice. Thank you. Oh, wow. We've got a flood of people coming in now. I'm not going to be able to keep up probably. I have one eye on the inauguration concert and the pup beside me. It was a good concert. I'm not sure anybody could match Lady Gaga today though. I think she kind of should have rocked it. I was really into her gold mic.
I thought the poet topped her.
Actually, you're right.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I was thinking singing, but you're right. Yeah, the poet was unreal. Amanda Gorman, I think her name, or
Yep.
Yeah, she was unreal. And what composure at 22 to recite that.
All of her videos are quite amazing. I've been watching them.
Have you, Sarah? Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's an inspirational day. And some other challenges arose, but.
No, what?
It was a bad bet anyway.
It's a bad bet anyway.
I wouldn't even call it a bet.
Yeah. Well, that's why we get to have the great chats tonight. Welcome everyone. We're still coming in. 2 minutes to go, and we're continuing to add participants. Great. How many people engaged? I was saying to people the other day, someone invited me to an old school conference call the other day, and it was super weird. I was like, it felt really disconnected. It felt like, and it even had the waiting room music, like the hold music that you have to sit there and listen to. And I was just like, who is doing these? Like, it just felt like a blast from another era for sure. So it's nice when we can see people. I don't know, I think it really, even though we're disconnected, it really does add to the sort of personal connection to have these Zoom things.
I think it's going to feel weird to have in-person meetings.
Yeah, I know, right? And then it's all going to be like, there's something
super
kind of,
awkward. What do I do with my hands? I have to wear pants?
It's kind of lovely too, because you see people's like, people just look really comfortable. They're in their own like environment and they're chilling out, and it feels like you get access. It feels like it's almost a more real insight into people, right?
Little window.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
they say everybody wears shorts when they're at their meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, or leggings, the ubiquitous sweats. Doesn't help my new business, that one, but maybe I'll host a sweatpant burning party when this is all done.
That would be awesome. I bet you'd get a huge turnout.
I know, right? And yeah, or like some kind of like, you know, ceremonial burning, and then I offer a discount, or like we like donate your sweatpants and you get a discount on a new product or something.
I would think there would need to be a ceremonial buying of the new bigger pants.
Totally. Well, I don't know. I think lots of people have gotten, I don't know, I actually got in better shape during this because
Oh, I've gone the wrong way then.
I think it's one or the other. People are either like, fuck it. Oh, sorry. Like, or, you know, or
So then maybe we need just a pants exchange.
You need a pants
If you
exchange.
get too big, get rid of them. If you got smaller, you can get rid of them too.
Yeah.
Like most things, it goes in every direction.
That's right.
Yeah.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Elastic waistband, someone, Patrick. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you. I see you.
I think we're going to get started, Emma.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll shut up.
No, it's good. Thanks. Yeah, I'll just give Anne a chance to put the other slide deck up. But while she's doing that, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Chad Park. Hi, everyone. Along with Emma, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Possibility Panel, and we're both thrilled to welcome you and very grateful that you've showed up tonight for this discussion. It's clearly, as we're just talking about, it's a historic day, and I'm not talking about the fact that the Flames are undefeated. It's you know, we've got a woman as Vice President of the United States sworn in today. We've got quite a different tone in Washington, and I think we all sense that this goes far beyond the relevance to the United States, and really it applies to all of us. I've experienced today as a day of hope, of a lot of hope, and I also know that it's been a tough day for some people. We heard earlier that there were 21 more deaths from COVID in Alberta today, which of course each of those means suffering for other people. We also know that that the news about Keystone XL is going to be met with mixed emotions by different people, probably even on this call. But I don't think we could. I think no matter what our views on that or all these issues are, it's be hard to argue with the fact that we need in Alberta here to be exploring alternative paths to prosperity than the ones we've relied upon so far. So that, I think, sets up our conversation really well on economic diversification, and really probably a reason why we've had such an excellent turnout for this, because it's obviously a relevant topic. I think it'd be hard to argue with that. So thank you again for everyone for being here. I'll just go through our plan for how we're going to spend the time here and introduce a few things. The first little bit here is going to be me setting the stage, and then we're going to hear from others. So Anne, you can go to the next slide. First of all, this is just an overview of the kind of the schedule, I guess, for how we intend to spend the next 2 hours. For those of you who have been to one of our warm-up sessions in late November and early December, this session will look and feel quite similar to those. Our intention is that there's a lot of dialogue, there's interaction, and you'll have a chance in breakouts, as we've talked about, to talk to some of the other people who are attending. So that's the feel. We will have some time where we'll hear from some of the possibility panelists who will seed a few of their own reflections on economic diversification to, I guess, to help us help frame our conversations as we get into the breakout groups. So we'll start with that framing. We'll move into hearing from the panelists, or a few of the panelists, and then we'll spend a good chunk of time in breakouts. Toward the end, we'll harvest ideas. So we're actually going to rely on you to submit ideas and to give input on the ideas that others are submitting. So it's very interactive in that sense. And we'll share in a moment how we plan to do that. And then we'll have some closing reflections from some of the other members of the possibility panel. So that's our intention. And I say harvest ideas because really that is the primary intention here, is to get a sense of what your ideas are for Alberta along the theme of economic diversification. And we'll dive into that in just a moment. Before we do, we can go to the next slide. And this is just from the chatter before we started at 7 here. I'm going to assume that a lot of people have used Zoom before, but just in case there are some of you who have not, here's a few little tips. The audio tricks to mute and unmute are down in the left. Same with the video. You can participate in the chat group, as many of you are already doing, by typing in your comments there where it says chat at the bottom, where the white arrow is. And we encourage you to do so, because that way is a chance to kind of share some reflections and questions and reactions as people are speaking. And the other thing, if we go to the next slide, Anne, is annotation. We're just going to use this in just a moment. This might be a function that not everyone has used. So if you go to the top of your screen in the middle, you'll see there's a View Options tab, I guess. And then if you press that, it comes down that list, and you can choose Annotate, and that allows you to mark up the screen. And yeah, there I'll give a few of you. I knew there'd be a couple people who would try it out. Good for you. And there you go. So we also have the ability to erase what you've written, just in case it's inappropriate. But feel free to use that, and we'll just do that in a moment, actually, with an exercise. So I'll move to the next slide, and this I'm going to start by introducing one of our possibility panelists, and that's Lior Rothschild. Lior is the executive director of an organization called Canadian Business for Social Responsibility. And Lior is going to say a few words about a land acknowledgement. Lior, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chad. I'm a proud member of the Possibility Panel, and I'm joining you today from Mohkinstsis, Blackfoot name for the place we now call Calgary, which is located in the Treaty 7 region and the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda. The city of Calgary is also home to the historic Northwest Métis and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. When I was asked to provide a land acknowledgement here for you today, I was honored to do so. And immediately I thought of my 4-month-old, Zoe. It will be many years before Zoe learns about the full context in which she was born into. But one day I hope she'll know the story of her parents, the Holocaust history of her ancestors, the story of the land they immigrated from, and the full story of the land they came to, and the oppression that was and is still felt here. In truth, I'm still learning that story myself. It's amazing to me how little of that story I actually learned through the public education system. And there's so much to unlearn when it comes to the history of this place. Yet acknowledging the history of those who stewarded this land, it helps to inform my experiences and the benefits that I enjoy today. If I don't acknowledge the history that started long before me, I deny myself the ability to see the full picture. to understand the full context. And therefore, I remain in the same childlike state that Zoe is in perpetuity. And if I'm oblivious to the reality of what has come before and what's happening around me, then I not only lose my connection to this land and its people, but also to my connection to future generations. And that's important to me. I've come to see that a land acknowledgement is a chance to open a dialogue. It's a chance to have introspection about how things came to be and how to build a shared future. It's an opportunity to heal, to express gratitude, and hopefully to inspire change. I certainly feel privileged to be a guest on Treaty 7, to build a family here and to enjoy my health, even in the midst of a global pandemic. I know that doing a land acknowledgement does not suddenly mean that truth and reconciliation has been achieved, but I do believe it is one baby step forward in a multi-generational journey that we're all on together to make us whole. Back to you, Chad.
Thank you, Lior. That was beautiful. And I really appreciate you doing that and saying those words. Now it's going to be the chance for people to practice using the annotation function we just introduced. And as Lior mentioned, one of the things that I have learned as well from Indigenous cultures is so much about it is about our relationship to the land. So we'd like you to use that annotation function and mark a spot on the map here that really means a lot to you. It's a chance for you to reflect on a piece of land or a place here that is special to you for some reason, and to show us on the map where that is. That's great. Thank you. You can keep going, and you see, as I do, how much of this country and even beyond we're connected to, and we feel represent something special to us. So thank you very much for that, and Lior for your opening remarks. We'll move in now to a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll get into the discussion. Oh, now we have a mess there. Okay, there. Thank you. By this time, I think you've signed up for this session, so I'm pretty sure you have heard of the Next 30. But just in case you are wondering who we are, this is a small not-for-profit organization started by a bunch of concerned Albertans, and we're really meaning to create some opportunities for Albertans to share ideas and stimulate more positive and productive public dialogue about Alberta's future. This is nonpartisan, we'll hear that in a second. It's also admittedly an experiment. We don't know exactly what's going to come of this, but I think by the reaction we've had since our launch in November and just the turnout to sessions like this, it's clear to us that there are others in this province who want to engage in this way. So thank you for joining us. The next slide is just a quick refresher on the Possibility Panel, which is the project we launched the Next 30 with. And there's a group of about 30 panelists who, some of whom you're going to hear from today, who are going to attend and help kind of cultivate discussions at these various sessions on different topics and themes related to Alberta's future. They all come from different backgrounds. They're accomplished in their own and respected in their own communities. And although we will hear from some of them to share their ideas, their primary responsibility in the invitation they've accepted is to listen. And so that's to listen to you and to listen to the ideas that come up through these discussions. And so just want to thank, I know there are many of the possibility panelists who have joined us today. I want to thank you all for both coming here and also for being a part of this journey over the next couple of months. The next slide, I just highlight six of those 30 or so who are the possibility panelists who are going to have a special role, I guess, on top of Lior, who you've already seen, and Emma and I. We're going to have a special role in this discussion. So they are Todd Hirsch, who's the chief economist at ATB Financial. Corey Jansen, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of Alta ML, a machine learning application developer. Anna de Pali, who leads de Pali and Associates and is also the chair of the Millerville Racing and Agricultural Society, among many other things. Marcella Mandeville, who is the CEO of Alberta Women's Entrepreneurs. Lori Buffalo, who's a counselor with the Samson Cree Nation. She's also done policy analyst work with the Confederation of Treaty 6 and is a small business owner as well, among many other things. You should see her bio. And who have I missed? And Carmen McNary, who's a lawyer from Edmonton and past chair of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce. So just want to thank you all for coming here, and I'll introduce them in a few moments when we get to the moment where they're going to play their role. Next slide. These were showing in the introduction when we got going. I just want to reiterate the values that the Next 30 was launched with. I won't read these out, but just give you a chance to take a look at them. This helps kind of define the kind of space that we're trying to create. There's some discussion about the nonpartisanship nature of this, and this really is just meant to be a space where people can show up from all different backgrounds, including different partisan backgrounds, to have a respectful dialogue about these issues. So it's there's a time and a place and a role for political parties and for partisanship, but our sense is that some people want to engage in a different way, and that's what the Next 30 is creating the space for. Next slide is something that one of the panelists, Tim Fox, introduced for us in the warm-up sessions, and these are the Brave Space principles, they're called. And these are principles that we put out there, and we invite you to adhere to, or to live up to, or to try to fulfill as you enter into the discussions that we're going to have, and in this kind of space. So we encourage you to be present in this virtual space and with each other. It's always tempting to, I guess, to be, especially when there's an inauguration concert on, to only be semi-present, but we really encourage you to be present. This is meant to be an engaging rather than a passive experience. To be open to new ideas and ways of thinking, to listen deeply and be curious, to bring your awareness of your own biases, assumptions, and judgments. Try to keep it a space of trust and confidentiality. So you hear some things here tonight, we encourage you, you can repeat maybe what was said, but not who said it, and just try to respect the confidentiality of the space so that we can make sure that people feel comfortable being open. Focus on possibility, acknowledge and appreciate others' gifts, and hold a space that's brave and courageous. And we really encourage you to say the challenging thing, or to be courageous in how you show up. Challenge ideas and not people. That'll help everyone to be courageous, and be comfortable with the fact that we will probably be uncomfortable in some of these moments, and that there's an opportunity for growth, and that we all kind of take accountability for our own learning. I just wanted to also specify that there are some young people that are joining this session and other sessions going forward. And I know we might all consider ourselves young. I know I'm 45 and I still consider myself young, but I mean real young people, high school students and university and college students, and that age group. And some of the young people are really bold. We heard already today about Amanda Gorman, the poet at the inauguration. He was only 22 years old. But often, sometimes the young people aren't, maybe haven't been invited into such spaces before. So I just want to give everyone a real word of encouragement to, if you find yourself in a group with some young people, to really encourage their active participation as well. We really want to hear from young Albertans as well. I think that's it. The last thing is just the a quick overview of Slido. So, Anne, you can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, thank you. One more slide. We did have some sessions in the warm-up sessions. I've already alluded to those, where we explored some what people appreciate about people in Alberta on the left there, and then things from our past that we wanted to celebrate. And these are some of the ideas that came out of those discussions. If you weren't there, you can go on our website to read a bit more about some of this as well. So Slido is the other technology we're using, and this is the way that we will gather input from you, do some polling, that type of thing over the course of the next hour and 40 minutes that remain. So if you have not used Slido before, you can either do it in a separate window from the one you're in now on your computer, or we encourage you, better if you have a phone or a device to use while you're doing this, to go onto that and do it. So we're going to test it. You go to slido.com, it'll ask you for an access, and you can put hashtag next 30. And here's just a test question to get a sense of the age range of the people that are in the room. Looks like everyone's figuring it out, so thank you. If you're still working on it, again, you go to slido.com, you enter a hashtag next 30, and this question should be in there as a poll. Okay. So we have a sense, we have different ages here, which is great. And we do have, let's say, 3% of the room that are under 25. So that, thank you especially to those of you who are in that category who've come out. And we're just going to ask something of you in a few moments, actually. Okay, it looks like 74 people have entered the answer there. So that might mean that with 241 people on the line, that there are several of you who have not yet done it, but you'll have a chance later to try the Slido tool as well. We'll move on now. So why a session on economic diversification? I'm just going to turn back to Emma to offer a few kind of opening reflections on that. You're on mute, Emma.
Unmute. I had to mute because the dogs were barking in the back, but I think they're quiet now. Well, they are quiet now. You'd hear them. Welcome and thanks for joining us. I think I noticed in the chat session there something Robert Fernandez brought up, was he put out there, should we be worried that there aren't a lot of younger people with us on this call tonight? And yeah, we are always concerned about making sure that we engage with a younger demographic, because you're right. This is in many ways what we're doing this for, is to build a future Alberta that we want people to join us here for. I'm the mom of teens. My daughter is 19 and my son is 17. He's still at school here. My daughter is out in Victoria. And as I look to the future for them, I worry about whether or not they will think of Alberta as a place that they can build excellent careers. And many of us came here because, well, I grew up here. My husband moved here because he had incredible career opportunity here. And it was much easier to get ahead in Alberta than it was to get ahead in Vancouver, where he was from. And that held true for us, you know, to this day, although probably my real estate value in Vancouver would have gone up a little more. nonetheless, Alberta was a place of incredible opportunity. And as we look to the future, we are worried about that opportunity. And we're worried that our kids and the next generation don't see that potential here and that they will be seeking opportunity elsewhere. And so it's incumbent on us to say, hey, this is a chance for us to actually shine a light on what it is that we can do in this province and the possibilities that we're leaving on the table. And I think that was where the possibility panel name and idea came from, was about what are we not talking about here? And I think today was a great example of so much of why this conversation is required. We know that the oil and gas industry has been a boom to this province and that we have all benefited from it for years and years and years. We know that it's also been our, I call it our sugar daddy to some degree, because really it's the trust fund that has allowed us to have excellent everything without paying super high taxes for things. At the same time, we know that that sugar daddy is running out of cash, and it's time for us to start looking at other opportunities for our province. And so here we sit and we are faced with opportunities, but we talk only about what's happening in the oil and gas sector, or that's what dominates our headlines. And so this is an important conversation, not because people aren't doing really cool things in Alberta. It's also an important conversation because we need to make sure that the rest of the world understands that we are doing cool things in Alberta and that we do not have our heads in the sand and we're looking backwards, that we're actually looking forwards. And so what we've done here today is collected a group of people who are looking forward and who do have ideas about where we need to go. And that's what we're excited about, is being able to actually start to share that story, because, you know, we turn on the news and we see Jason Kenney talking about economic sanctions against our, you know, largest trading partner. And once again, the oil and gas industry, and it is an important project. There is absolutely no doubt to that. But once again, it just dominates our discussions. And if we are going to break out of this cycle, we need to actually have other cool things dominate our discussions. So let's start dreaming and picking away at some of these possibilities and starting a narrative ourselves that will help define the future of Alberta. So that was why I got excited about when Chad was like, hey, I got to meet you for coffee in Bridgeland, because we have to start talking about these things that are going to change the province. And that's why we're here today, is because we think this province has got incredible opportunity before it. We've just got to start taking it up. So thanks everybody for joining us. And we look forward to actually hearing from some people who know what they're talking about. So here we go.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Chad.
That's great. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that there were some technical issues there halfway through that little exercise with Slido, so that's why it wasn't working for some of you. So when we try it again, we will see if it works the second time, and if not, we'll try a fix. Okay, so next slide is just to elaborate a little bit on that youth perspective. When we talk about the next 30, the name of the initiative, it refers to the next 30 years, what's it going to take to thrive here in Alberta over the next 30 years and beyond. And to consider that and to help set the stage for the conversation we're about to dive into, we thought it was important to make sure we explicitly learn from the people who have the most stake in that future, and that is the young people. So if Slido works, we're going to try a little exercise here to ask the young people to answer this one. So only answer this time in Slido if you are under 25, okay? And so that wasn't a very huge proportion here, so we'll see how many people get a chance to respond. But in one word, those of you who are under 25, what do you want to see in Alberta's future in terms of economic diversification? So we've got sustainability is a big one, green economy, free market, technology hub, tourism, hydrogen, excitement. That's an interesting one. Alternative energy, land back, knowledge-based business, energy transition, renewables, tech, fintech, greenification, consciousness, VR. Great. And sustainability is the biggest answer there. I'll just give one of you young people who answered with the word sustainability, if you're brave, if you're feeling brave, to just give you a chance to put your hand up and just elaborate for just 30 seconds on why you put that word. What does that mean? Is there one of the young people who wants to jump in and say that?
Hi, I don't have my camera on, but I can jump in.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I guess I think the reason why we're all focusing on sustainability is we understand how urgent the matter is. We literally do not have the time that I think other generations thought we did to plan and take our time on figuring out how we're going to be green. Unfortunately, we're really going down a spiral in terms of the damage that we're doing to our environment, both in Alberta and outside of Alberta, just on a global scale. And so being able to do things and invest in Alberta in a way where it would actually reduce the footprint it leaves would be phenomenal, not just for us as the youth, but also for future generations. And so there would be a future for us to look forward to, but it is me and my peers, sometimes we joke, what if we don't even really have a future? Because the reality is that's how bad things are in terms of the effects that we're leaving on the environment and how little actual change is happening right underneath our noses. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Yeah, thank you very much for answering and for volunteering to offer some comments. Is it Maya? Thank you.
Yeah, so
Maya?
Maya.
Maya, okay. Thank you,
Yep.
Maya.
Thank you.
I mean, the word sustainability is interesting that one showed up so prominently there. It's inherently an intergenerational concept. A responsibility to future generations as well. So anyway, there are lots of other great ideas there too. Looks like hemp's a big one of interest as well. So thank you all for giving us your perspective. And for the rest of us, this is a chance to just quickly hear some of the big ideas that our young people, I guess, challenge us with in terms of what they want to see for the future economic diversification. So let's keep this in mind as we get into our discussions. And again, thank you for that. Move on to the next slide. And that's a moment where we're going to move into the discussion with our possibility panelists. We've asked them each, just three of the panelists so far, to share 5 minutes on their views about what's possible for Alberta on economic diversification. And I've already introduced some of the panelists who'll be here, so I'll just get right into the first one, and that's going to be Todd Hirsch from ATB Financial. So welcome, Todd.
Well, thank you very much, Chad, and thank you to all the organizers. I'm very excited, honored to be part of the Possibility Panel. I think what the organizers have started here is fantastic, and I think it's well needed in our province. I've spent my entire life in Alberta, born and raised, and spent the first half in Edmonton. Accidentally moved to Calgary halfway through my life, and that's where I now reside. But I do call Alberta home, and I'm very happy that we're having these conversations. So I've been asked to give a few thoughts. I've only got 5 minutes, so I'm going to dive right into it. 3 points I want to make as an economist about when we think about a diverse economy. The first one is diversity really what we're after here, or is it something else? And the reason I ask that is when you look at the most economically diversified province in Canada, statistically, when you break it down by sector, the most diversified province is Manitoba. And no disrespect to Manitoba. I love Winnipeg. I love Manitoba. But I don't know if any of us would really say that's the model. That's what we want to become economically. Because in a lot of ways, Manitoba's economy is kind of stagnant and not very, very prosperous. I would suggest it's not diversity we're after, but stability that we're after in our province. A really interesting economic paper by Trevor Toome at the University of Calgary, and I can provide anyone a link with this if they're interested in reading it. It's a little bit dated, it's about 4 years, but he did a dive into looking at, is Alberta's economy really any less diversified than any other? And his conclusion was no. When you break it down by sector, Alberta is just about as diversified as every other sector. What Alberta's challenge is our dominant industry. So every province, every region tends to have a dominant industry, as does Alberta, the energy sector. Our challenge is our dominant industry is prone to wild fluctuations. That's what makes it challenging. It's not necessarily that we're less diverse, it's the nature of the energy sector. So that's the first question. Is it diversity that we're really after, or is it really stability and growth that we're after? The second point I want to make, even if we did decide that we want to see more sectors and we want to see more balance and other things around clean tech and agriculture and tourism, the question becomes, is it the government's responsibility to grow those? And sort of another question added onto that, does government even have the ability to grow those? I always believe, and I know we're, thank goodness we're a nonpartisan group here tonight, but I always believe we give governments both too much credit and too much blame for things. And I know when we go into the breakout rooms, it's going to be very tempting to say, what the government needs to do is this, or what the government needs to do is that. I would suggest we temper our expectations about what government is even able to do. Here I'm going to use a metaphor of a garden. The gardener does not actually make the plants grow. The plants grow on their own. The gardener, however, has an important job in making sure that the growing conditions are ideal for the plants that are there. The gardener makes sure that the soil is watered and that the soil is tilled, and that to the degree he or she is able, that there's sunshine on the garden. But the gardener does not actually make the plants grow. It does not artificially bring plants in. It creates the best conditions, but economic growth, I believe, has to be organic. And I got one more minute for my last point. Even if we do arrive at a point where we would say, there, Alberta's economy is now nicely stable. We've got lots of other sectors, lots of job opportunities. That would be great, but we have to remember this, it does not solve a really important problem for Alberta, and that is our provincial government's revenues. We can add the tech sector, and I'm glad to see we are. We can add sustainable energy and clean energy, but they do not pay royalties to our provincial government the way oil and gas has always paid for. So that is still a problem that is going to exist, even if we do arrive at an economy that is really nicely diverse and stable and balanced, which I hope we do. But we still have to recognize the dominance of the energy sector with respect to our provincial government revenues. That is still going to be a problem that exists. That's going to be a problem for a different night on the Possibility Panel. But that is my 5 minutes. So thank you very much for the chance to give some of my ideas and thoughts.
Thank you, Todd. That's a great set of ideas to mull over as we're diving into the conversation. Just for everyone to keep in mind, we will have a little bit of a Q&A with the three panelists once the three of them are done. So if you want to write your questions in the slido.com, there'll be a chance then for you to vote up the questions that you really like and that you want to see, and that'll help me as the moderator when we get to the Q&A to pick the questions that are of most interest to the group. So that's just a little encouragement for you to do that again, and here's the spot again. So thank you, Todd. Next, I'm going to invite Corey Jansen from Alta ML to do his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chad. So I've been in tech in this province for about 20 years, and you'll see that definitely has influenced these three ideas that I'd like to propose to the group. These aren't tangible, policy objectives. They're really mindsets. First off, I think we should ban the word diversification. Now, that's not because I'm against diversification. I just think that this word has become so loaded and politically charged that you can't use it in a conversation without triggering someone on either side of the political spectrum. Let's focus on how we can build on the traditional industries, but leapfrog into new ones. We should be the center of ag tech and be exporting software built here in the prairies around North America. We should take our energy industry and be the leaders in clean tech. And as we do this, and tech is infused across so many of our traditional industries, I think there's also the opportunity to be big on the health tech side. And we can strike a balance, those traditional industries as well. When I talk to executives in Calgary, ESG is at the center of nearly everybody's policy objectives. And so there's no reason we can't double down on traditional industries. We can have our cake and eat it too. There's no trade-off. It's not an or situation, it's an and situation. The second mindset that I think we need to just get rid of right away is just that the private sector can do it all on its own, or that we can go to the government as a rescue. I like to think of the oil sands and the parallel with what I see in technology today. The oil sands were not built just by a bunch of mavericks that went out and all of a sudden invented this massive opportunity. You had amazing research out of the U of A and the U of C that without that technology, we wouldn't have been able to actually make these breakthroughs and actually be able to have any bitumen that is exported one way or another. But that doesn't happen without the right government policy. Unless you have the right government policy that allows the private sector to come in, because academics on their own, and we deal with a lot of them at the U of A and the U of C, they're not necessarily going to go out and take the risk. It really is a partnership. I wrote an op-ed along with Joe Doucette, the Dean of the School of Business at the U of A, that we called AI Oil Sands 2.0. I think really, and I'm talking my own book here, obviously I'm in the AI space, but here is that perfect example where we would not be able to build an AI company in Alberta if it weren't for the amazing researchers that we have at the University of Alberta. Those researchers got there because the government invested 20 years ago and had long-term foresight. Really, when you put together academia and business combined with the private sector, is when we see the opportunity truly come together. Third, and finally, I think we need to get rid of this short-term jobs trade-off thinking. The number of times I've heard, well, tech can't replace the number of jobs that we're losing from oil and gas. Yeah, agreed. In the next 6 months, in the next year, it's just simply not possible. But we're thinking a little bit short-sighted there. CBRE reported that Toronto has created over 80,000 jobs in tech in the last couple of years. That's more than San Francisco and Seattle combined. Unless we make the changes right now, we'll never have those jobs down the road. But there's a bunch of Albertans around this group called the A100. Brad Zumwalt, some of you might know the name, David Edmonds, have put together this model. If we just had the same percentage of jobs in tech as you have in the Kitchener, Waterloo, and Toronto corridor, the same percentage of GDP, we would create 75,000 jobs in Alberta by 2030. Now, that's a long-term vision I think I could get behind. So it's these three ideas: ban diversification, realize it's a team sport between government, academia, and the private sector. And third, understand that short-term, we got problems, but we need to think about policies that will have a long-term perspective. So with that, I'll close off, but I really want to thank all of you for coming here. I also want to point out, this is a non-partisan venue, but I can tell you, I saw at least a mayor or two come in, a whole bunch of counselors. I think I saw MLA Darren Billis somewhere here. The elected officials are paying attention. So keep that in mind in these breakout groups. The more we can have conversations, the more we can eliminate that polarization, the better we'll all be off. So thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Corey. That's great. People seem to like the boldness of your first comment, and we'll get more into it in a moment. Last panelist to help us get started in our thinking is Anna Pali. So Anna, I'm going to turn to you, and I know Anna comes from an agricultural background, so it'll be interesting to hear what she has to say.
Thank you very much, Chad. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and to contribute to this discussion, which I think is really important. So we were asked to talk about how can we leverage our strengths. And there's two strengths. I'm obviously originally English, so I married a Canadian. I've been here since 2006. So I see Alberta's strengths perhaps differently than some of you who've been here a long time. And there's two things that I really want to focus on. And one is entrepreneurship, which is in abundance here in Alberta. And the second thing is the agri-food sector, which is the sector in which I work. And agri-food often doesn't get as much attention, but it is a significant contributor to our GDP, to the tune of $8.5 billion. And agri-food employs about 73,000 Albertans. And that was statistics prior to COVID. I had to get my stats right because, of course, I'm on a panel with Todd Hirsch, so I had to quickly verify my stats today. And of course, when you look at Alberta from a global perspective, we're really world renowned for our climate, our soils, and our depth of expertise, both in crops and in animal husbandry, and of course, food processing. And so the good news and the possibilities, and why I'm excited to talk to you tonight, is there's a lot happening in the agri-food sector, both on some of the things that have already come up. Hemp is obviously a growing industry. There's a super cluster developing on plant proteins. And there's also a lot of entrepreneurial small businesses starting up. So I just want to highlight, I only have 5 minutes and I can't cover a whole sector, but I'm going to highlight some businesses and some ideas and leave you with a few takeaways from this sector. So the first thing I will mention is the supercluster. So we have the Canadian protein industry supercluster, which is across the prairies. And this is scheduled to have an impact of about $4.5 billion and create 4,500 jobs in the next 10 years. So the focus of the supercluster, for those who are not familiar with this, is adding value to Canadian crops, and especially in plant-based alternatives to meat and new products. So basically, rather than selling the commodity, you upgrade it into something else which has a higher value. So there's a lot of interest on this. And I'm actually going to share some links in the chat. Anna's going to do that for me, to a lot of the things that I'm going to mention, just so you can follow up if you're interested. So in addition to these large initiatives like the supercluster, there's also many small businesses. And as Chad mentioned, I'm the chair of the board in my volunteer life of the Millerville Ag Society. So at Millerville, we have one of the largest outdoor farmers markets in Alberta. We have a market in the summer and a Christmas market, and we attract thousands of visitors every year. And the amazing thing about the farmers market is if you're an entrepreneur and you have a business idea, you want to take strawberries and make jam, farmers markets are a really great platform because you get to meet your consumer. You get to ask them, do you like the taste of this? Do you like the price of this? What can we do with this? And so there's many businesses which have used that springboard of the farmers market. So I have a few examples. Spalumbos of Calgary, they actually started at Millerville 30 years ago with a stall and have grown into a successful business. They sell Italian sausages. You'll find them in the supermarket. You'll also see they have a food processing plant and a retail outlet in Inglewood in Calgary. So there are many examples of these businesses which started small and become medium-sized and significant employers. There's also a couple of other examples that I want to highlight. One is a business in Medicine Hat. This is called Big Marble Farms. They grow greenhouse vegetables. You'll find them throughout the province in supermarkets. This is a family business. Two families came together with a vision, and they have grown significantly. And they're now quite a large and substantial business growing fresh vegetables. I'll mention one more example, which again brings together the strengths and diversification. And this business is called King Cole Ducks. They're an Ontario-based business. You can again find their products in the supermarkets. And what's interesting about them is, again, multi-generational family needed to grow their business to bring in more members. And you'd be amazed at the amount of products that you can make from the egg, the duck egg, and all the different duck products. So really interesting business to just to look at. So from my perspective, I see possibilities both in traditional agriculture, in agri-food, and in emerging sectors like the supercluster. And so my call to action for you, and there's many entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs like Corey who are on this call. And what I would say to you is investigate the agri-food and agriculture sector. There's career opportunities for young people, for older people. There's many career opportunities in this sector. There's also many investment opportunities in this sector. There's a lot happening. And the second thing that I'll say is, if you have a great idea, now is the time to do it, because businesses grow over time. I've had my own business for over 20 years. It takes time to build a business. So if you have that idea, what I can tell you from my experience with farmers markets is that there's a huge demand for local produce and for relationships, for building a relationship with the person who grows the food or makes the product. And so there's a lot of interest. There's also grants available as well for through the Canadian Agricultural Partnership. And again, I'll put the links in the chat to those things. So I just have finally an image which Anna can put on the screen. I have seedlings. So what Chad said at the beginning is that we're here to harvest ideas. And as we all know, we can't harvest the crop until we've sowed the seed. So what I hope that we do through this possibility panel is exchange ideas and sow these seeds. And what's exciting to me is seeing the crop that we can eventually harvest from this. So thank you very much. I really appreciate being here.
Thank you, Anna. It's a great metaphor for us to keep in mind as we go forward, and lots of really inspiring examples there. I'm conscious that there's been, you know, a moderator usually has his own or her own questions to ask, but there've been so many questions either in the chat box or on Slido that I'm just going to jump right into asking some of these. I noticed that a lot of them, including the top question, have to do with provincial government revenues. Todd alluded to the fact that we're going to do a whole session on that in a few weeks. So I'm just going to skip to the second question first, because I think it was also the subject of discussion on chat. So on the chat a lot about the third sector. So what role should the charitable and nonprofit sector play in the economic conversation? I don't know if any of you, I thought maybe Todd, you might want to start with the response on that question if you have one.
That question must have come from somebody at the YMCA. Hi, Ken. No, it's a great question. And the whole idea of what I call the social economy, which includes networks of friends, families, volunteers, charities, not-for-profits, faith organizations, altruism, all of these things are a really important layer of our economy. It tends to get overlooked in my estimation, but I do think over COVID, every one of us has perhaps in some way attained a greater appreciation for the importance of the social economy as a foundation on top of which other aspects of our economy, like the market economy, are built. So absolutely, I think really important role for charity and nonprofits. And that might, you know, that might naturally happen as governments increasingly, and again, I'm not being political here at all, but as governments find that some of the things that they maybe used to play a really useful role in the 20th century are actually better delivered by charities and by the social economy, by networks of friends and families and volunteers. So I think we're going to see some interesting evolution in the 21st century. COVID may have hastened that or nudged us in the right direction, but I think it's a really important question about the role of charities and not-for-profits.
Thanks, Todd. I'm going to jump to another question that I'm going to direct to you, Corey, because I think this is a really good one for us to have some perspective on as we get into the breakouts. Jeff asks, shouldn't we be targeting an industry that offers our province a competitive advantage? Example, we won't compete with Silicon Valley on tech. I would argue that our competitive advantage is in our natural resources. You want to respond to that? I bet you that's a question you've answered before.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's an either or. So I would definitely agree with the sentiment that we should specialize. We can't be everything, but every industry will be changed by technology, is being changed by technology. I mean, we're an AI company, but we deal in health, we deal in financial services, we deal in oil and gas, and we deal in ag. Because technology is, especially technologies like AI, where we do have a competitive advantage, will transform those businesses. So I think we can double down in technology in those industries where there's strength. That's exactly what I was getting at when I say throw out the word diversification. It's an and situation here where we can actually still stay within some of our industries, but we can do so in an ethical and sustainable way, and we can do so with a technology and digital first mindset.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Anna, I've got one for you. How do less tech-based innovations like regenerative farming, no-till farming play in all this? Do we see farmers willing to adopt these kinds of practices for sustainability and better crop health?
So again, I'm talking about a whole sector here, which makes it challenging. But there are many examples. When you look at, if you take the agriculture sector, many people are basically selling a commodity product. And in any commodity business, whether it's oil and gas or it's agriculture, in order to be competitive, you have to look at all of these types of options. So certainly we've seen growth, and there's many statistics. I'm sure Todd has this better than I do, but in terms of growth in the size of farms, but also in sustainable practices. In order to be competitive, you need to start looking at some of these things. What I can say in the greenhouse industry is that is a lot happening in this area right now. A lot of greenhouses are installing cogeneration, so they're recovering the waste heat from generators. You're seeing greenhouse energy curtains. You're seeing a number of measures to reduce your carbon footprint, but also to ensure that you're competitive, because at the end of the day, energy is a huge input cost for a greenhouse business.
Okay, thanks, Anna. I'm going to pose a question that I think applies to all three of you. So any of you feel free to jump in here. This is about the link to talent. And Chris Moen asks, when we Albertans talk about economic diversification, how do we reconcile the difference between what new industries desire from their future workforce versus the workforce available talent resources? Does tech, ag, tourism, etc. require the types of jobs in Calgary downtown had until very recently, for example? Anyone want to talk about that, about the link between diversification and talent here? Go ahead, Anna.
I can say something on that. So I do teach at the Wharton Business School in San Francisco. So obviously San Francisco very focused on tech. And one of the things that I've learned through teaching an MBA program is that continuous learning is something that's becoming more and more important. So whatever sector that you're in or whatever skill set you have, I think the notion that you went to university 20 years ago and you're done is not the case anymore. So I think whatever industry you're in and whatever skill set you have, we all have to be able to be prepared to invest in continuous learning and development. And I do think that that's going to be a theme, whatever industry we're in and whatever the future looks like for jobs. I think we have to all be willing to continuously learn and adapt as we go forward.
Chad, I'd love to build on that. Couldn't agree more. When we see a resume from Waterloo, that student usually has had 3 or 4 co-op terms. So the buzzword in post-secondary right now is work integrated learning. I mean, whether you call it co-op, whatever you want to call it, I think we could actually build a brand Alberta where if we build this into our culture and we put the right incentives in place to be able to have those experiences, and this is where it transcends traditional to new industries, right? I know the Business Council of Alberta has been behind this, and definitely the current government is looking at this, but we can't gut our universities. Without strong post-secondaries, none of this exists. I will push back a little bit and say that the brain power that we have can't be repurposed. Now, I'm not saying that, if you were driving truck that necessarily you can be a data scientist, But we have a program, my firm AltaML, that's in conjunction with ATB, Suncor, Spartan Controls, and TransAlta in Calgary. We're putting 240 Calgarians through this internship program, where think of that engineer where she might have 8 to 10 years experience within oil and gas or process control, who is now learning the ropes in terms of being a data scientist. And we're having amazing results from this. So that brain power can exist in both traditional industries and tech, because again, the distinction between traditional and tech, I think, is blurring more and more every day.
Great,
And
thanks.
the only thing I'll add to that quickly, I have a lot of young people, high school, university age, young adults who come to me and they ask, you know, what program should I take at university? And I always tell them, well, worry about it a little, but don't worry about it too much, because in the grand scheme, it's not going to matter. It's more important that you keep your skills flexible, so you're able to adapt whatever it is you're learning to different industries. Be a positive-minded person and be nice, and the world is going to open up with opportunities.
Okay. Thanks, folks. Really great, inspiring examples. What I love to hear from all three of you are both sort of principles and big picture ideas, and also a lot of really specific examples, including many of the examples that are things that are already happening in the province and that we can build on and we can leverage. So really appreciate that. There are far more that we could go into with you, the three of you, on this topic. And I know there are way more questions than we have the ability to manage in our time. So I'll just encourage everyone to keep putting comments, questions, ideas in the chat box. It's like there's a whole other session going on there, and I appreciate that. That's great. That's exactly what we want, that level of engagement. But I am going to move us on. So thanks again to the panelists, and they're going to be listening in on the future conversations and connecting ideas as well. So thank you for that. The next section of our meeting here is going to be the breakout section. So we're calling this How Might We? And what we want you to do is to get into, in a moment, we're going to send you off into breakout groups to get into your own reflections on all these ideas. And I know lots of you have been putting thoughts into the chat box already, so that's great. We have a bit of a process for you to do that. I know from our warm-up sessions before the holidays, the breakout sessions were generally people's favorite parts of these sessions. And I think it's because it's kind of a random collision of strangers who don't really know each other, but have an opportunity to kind of share views on these topics. So we're going to give you a chance to do that in just a sec. And you will have some task here about what, an output that we're going to try to harvest from here, but it's pretty light touch. So don't feel too much pressure about this. But so next slide. Yeah, just before we get into it, in the warm-ups, there was a question or a request, I guess, in the feedback we received about just for us to provide some guidance for when you get into your breakout sessions, how to engage in these conversations. So I'm just sharing this one framework. There's of course there are other frameworks that you've heard of. This is one by Otto Scharmer, who talks about 4 types of conversation, and you can see the axes there. I'll focus in on the 4 quadrants. In the bottom left, there's the kind of conversation that is he calls talking nice. So where you might just be scraping the surface, you might be a bit hesitant to really kind of say what you really think, in that type of thing. And there's a time and a place for that, and it's a certain type of conversation. As you get over to the right there's a different kind of conversation that's about talking tough, debating, and often when you're in those kind of conversations, you're listening to the other person maybe, but you're listening for the reason to try to find holes in their argument that you can point out to them. And I think we all know there's a lot of those kind of conversations, especially on social media and in the public dialogue these days. We are hoping that we can encourage you to come into some conversation here, knowing that this is just a start and you're going to be in rooms with people you don't know. But into the upper 2 quadrants. So reflexive dialogue, where you're you are asking questions. Your approach is really one of curiosity and inquiry about other people's ideas and thinking. And the sort of ultimate, I guess, in this is the upper left there, generative dialogue, where you're not only listening with curiosity to other people, but you're connecting their ideas to your ideas. So that leads to co-creation. So this is just something to keep in mind as you go into these discussions. Do you find yourself talking nice? Do you find yourself tempted to get into debates? You know, and if you do, that's okay, but just maybe try to have a conversation going on in your head about how do I get myself into a generative space in this conversation. That's what we'd encourage you to do. I'll just give you the guidance here as we break off into the groups. So you're going to have about let's see, that adds up to 27 minutes. So they're actually about oh, it's interesting. I saw a number of people drop off here. People are scared of the breakouts. Don't be scared of the breakouts. It's really fun, actually. So you get in there and you'll introduce yourselves quickly, do a round of who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing, really quick. Then if you could just each take an opportunity to each share one insight that resonated from the panel session, or a question you're asking yourself, or something you saw in the chat box that you thought, yeah, that really made me think. Just something that resonated with you from the discussion so far. Then we encourage you to have to share a personal story in relation to this topic. Why does this topic matter to you? Why does economic diversification matter to you? What's your experience? Are you worried about your own job? Are you, do you have some experience that's relevant to this? What's your story in relation to this conversation? And then for the last little bit to just engage in a free group conversation about the ideas that you find most compelling for Alberta on this topic, and try to connect your ideas if you can. We don't have to produce a single group output here. When we harvest the ideas, we're going to give you a chance at the end to just put your own individual thought in, so you don't have to worry about producing a consensus out of this breakout group, but just try to hear from each other about your reflections in this. And we will give you, we're going to have too many people to have a facilitator in each session, so we will give you a little prompts will show up on your screen about encouragement to move on to the next part. I mean, obviously that's just a general loose guideline to the conversation, but you'll see those appear in your breakout group. So hope this works. It's an experiment. Enjoy. Welcome back, and hope you had a good conversation in your breakout group. Sorry to some of you who might have got cut off midway through as we merged you into slightly larger groups. We did have some people bail as they were being put into breakout groups, so suddenly the group sizes shrunk, but hopefully you managed through that. And I hope it was a productive conversation. Yeah, I see the breakout rooms can be scary, I know. So thank you. One of the Brave Space principles was about being courageous, so thank you for doing that. And I will say, we're going to take a moment now to try to harvest ideas. And like I said, we're not going to try to hear from every group or hear a consensus out of every discussion or a summary. Rather, we want to give each individual who's in this session a chance to share your own reflection and your own answer, I guess, to the question. So there were, I see there was a question there. There were 4 or 5 people per group generally. So here's the question we want, and again, we'll do this back on Slido in just a moment. What one idea do you find most compelling for Alberta to leverage our strengths to build opportunity in emerging sectors? That was the kind of framing question. And so we want to hear what one idea you have. And just keep in mind as you do this that I think it's a 300 character maximum, so just slightly more than a tweet. Which means you don't have to put one word, but you also don't have enough space in the Slido here to write a whole paragraph. So one idea, and try to be concise but still descriptive enough that you can convey that idea. And if there are specific names to it or something that you want to highlight, then put it in there. Like a specific example, like some of the ones that Anna shared earlier, for example, anything like that that you want to you know, as specific as you can is great. Because what we're going to do here with this, and I see they're coming up now, so thank you. What we're going to do with this is this is all going to serve as input to the possibility panel. You know, possibility panel is going to take some of the discussion that's been had here, what they've heard here, and also synthesis of these ideas, and mull them over a little bit and see what we can come up with. So yeah, as you're doing there, if not only your task is not only to enter your own idea, but also to vote up some of the ideas you find most compelling or interesting. So you can see the same thing as I can on the screen, which is the top ranked ideas, most popular ideas so far, using our post-secondaries as incubators, building platforms of collaboration, better collaboration between industry and academia. Using our skills in oil, gas, coal, and energy. Leverage the education sector for research and new capabilities. Interesting. Lots on post-secondary and the leveraging of our talent and our human resources. William, I see your comment, our cultural diversity can contribute to our economic diversity. So good, we've got 89 responses, 90 responses already. It's a little over half of you who've put something in. I encourage everyone to put some ideas in here. Right, still the top ideas are about leveraging post-secondary and the education sector. Building platforms of collaboration, involving First Nations perspectives as part of our sustainability initiatives. Supercluster of petrochemicals, hydrogen, other heavy industry in Alberta's industrial heartland. I think there's been the seeds of that have begun, haven't they? Political diversity, grow food year-round, hydroponics, hydrogen economy. I've noticed that's come up a fair bit. Health tech, government-supported co-op businesses and ventures. Make new products out of CO2. Those are interesting ideas that are about turning what might be considered some of our problems into possibilities. Location and transport of goods. How do we build a framework to leverage our natural resources to feed the creativity, education, mental health, and growth to give our kids more time and comfort to survive? Geothermal energy. Teach entrepreneurship in K-12. Great, thanks folks. Really good ideas here, and this is exactly what we were hoping for, is to give everyone a chance to have their say about their views about one idea you'd find most compelling, and also to express your interest and support for others people's ideas. Thank you for this. I'm going to move us along here, and we're going to turn to our a next round of panelists, of possibility panelists. So we've already heard from Corey, Todd, and Anna, but all the way along we've had several other members of the possibility panel listening in. And so we've got 3 more of the panelists that we're going to call on here to share some of their closing reflections about things that you've heard from this discussion, trends you've heard, patterns you've heard, that kind of thing. So it's going to be Carmen McNary, Lori Buffalo and Marcella Mandeville. We'll hear from each of them first, and then and we'll head into a bit of a wrap up. So Carmen, do you want to go next?
Thanks, Chad. Not unexpected after the 2 introductory sessions, but what a rich conversation, and I absolutely love the breakout room effectiveness in triggering ideas, and then the use of the Slido to gather those. And I want to pick up on 2 of those that were consistent with the conversation in the room that I participated in, and I think also consistent with what the panelists at the start talked about. The first of those is that rather than have one idea or one target for building a different economy, whether it's more diverse or more stable and able to grow, it was about the process of having the conversations. And I saw that Angela's comment, which she made in the room as well, has been voted up onto the sort of the top 10 list, talking about telling the bigger story and focusing beyond kind of what's in the news and on the front pages of our papers all the time. It's more that, yes, we're oil and gas and we're still proud of it, despite all of the challenges that I know that can present. But we're much more than that, and we've always been much more than that. So that was one. The other is the idea of supporting the innovation and development based on our strengths, whether that's in agriculture or forestry or tourism or tech or any of those things. Where we've been successful is where the universities have fostered research and development and put us at the leading edge, and fostering that and being strategic about it, being directional about it, is really important. And then the last point, which we didn't talk about a lot in our room, but I think is one that shouldn't be lost, is reflecting our population and where potential is for growth and for learning at the same time. And I think that focuses on the Indigenous conversation that we need to have. The example that was given in our room that was great was Indigenous focused tourism, cultural based tourism. But there are many, many other examples that we know of where we would all benefit from the conversation, and there is huge growth potential there that can help to stabilize. So those would be my observations.
Okay, thank you very much, Carmen. Okay, I'm going to invite I think Lori Buffalo to go next.
Thank you, Chad. I think my reflections from today's session include, the first thing that comes to mind is words matter. You know, Corey started off with his presentation early in the session this evening, and one of the statements that he said really stood out to me. And he said, eliminate the polarization and the better we'll all be off. And, you know, as an Indigenous woman, as an Indigenous participant, as somebody who is active not only on this panel, but active in business, active in Indigenous human rights, I think the education piece that has been talked about, the tech piece, ag, all of these different things from a business perspective, the first and foremost, I think, is that we do need to continue to keep building those platforms of collaboration, you know, building those safe spaces for everybody to not only be heard, but for everybody to belong and to participate. You know, that's the bigger story. And, you know, and I think that some of my other takeaways, not only as an Indigenous woman in business, but an Indigenous woman in leadership, is that Indigenous peoples themselves, not only within Treaty 6, 7, and 8, but also all through Canada, is that we're the largest untapped resource for economic development and economic participation. And when you can take our population numbers and you can join us by being an ally, you'll start to see the impact on not only the GDP, but also the health of our countries. the health of our families, the health of our communities. So I think the statement that has been, or the idea that came up through the opportunities poll, is that involving Indigenous perspectives as part of the sustainability initiatives or business initiatives or economic initiatives, education initiatives, tech initiatives are not just inviting us in. Create a space where Indigenous peoples can actually lead that conversation. And then what you're going to find that is when we have spaces that have proper, respectful, and meaningful participation of all, you know, we're going to start asking the questions, what are we leaving for our children? And what does that legacy look like? You know, and I think one of the biggest things is that regardless of whether or not you're an entrepreneur or you're in business or you're in municipal politics or provincial politics or within an Indigenous community, there is enough space for all of us, for every single one of us to be successful. And being successful in business and education and tech and all these different sectors, it means that we get to know our neighbors and we get to utilize and work with in partnership with our neighbors. So I think not only this session, but the calls that have been made to us from both the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action, along with Treaty Number 6, 1876, Treaty Number 7, 1877, and Treaty Number 8, 1889, is that we are to all work in unity. And I think those are my biggest takeaways from today, is that our future is actually based in unity. So thank you. Hi.
Thank you, Laurie, and thank you for referencing those as well. Marcella, over to you.
Yeah, so, well, thank you, Carmen, Laurie, the other panelists who spoke earlier. You know, I started thinking about what I was going to talk about here right from the very beginning. And I think that, you know, setting the stage around the story that we talk about and unlearning. And I think a lot of where we talked about things like language, and to Laurie's point, words do matter. So sometimes we get caught on the words instead of actually what the meaning is behind them or what the intent is of what we're trying to achieve. And so part of what I thought was really interesting today was to start to help us to unlearn some of these things that have become part of our vocabulary and part of our outlook and the way we perceive our province and ourselves and the way we fit into our country and into the world. So, you know, we have great opportunities to engage really interesting ideas and models into our long-term thinking. And it's not about a government setting the policies for us. And I really was struck by what Todd said around the social economies. You know, the social economy, this is a very powerful place where that collaboration, those platforms can come into play, and we can engage voices and not only just perspectives, but decisions by in an inclusive way, by those who really know what they're talking about and can add value to what we're trying to create. So I think that there's great opportunity, and that is a place too where when we talk about engaging youth and engaging younger perspectives and voices, that's an excellent space. We see a lot of that emerging in social enterprise, and actually looking at how we're not only making money, we're making our communities better, and we're making our families better, and we're making the place where we live better. And so I think that's a really interesting opportunity. And there was great conversation around, you know, the sustainability piece and what does that look like for our province. But I think overall, it's really around the story that we're telling ourselves and that we're telling each other, and that how are we actually going to shift away from what we have always, perhaps what we've always believed or what we always rest on, into what the future has to be. And so I think it's really a time, there's been a very interesting year, and it'll be another interesting year and years ahead. But how can we really take advantage, I guess, of the opportunity to shift how we think and how we engage and collaborate with each other. Now is the time to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Marcella. Thank you to all three of you for your reflections. And I know there are other members of the Possibility Panel who have been participating as well, and probably have a lot of reflections as well, as I'm sure everyone else does too. So I'm going to move us along to the wrap up here. Just want to say thank you to all 6 of the, well, 7 counting Leor, Possibility panelists who contributed to this discussion. Really appreciate you participating and making your time. And we look forward to the next steps to kind of work with the ideas that have been generated here and see what we can craft from that. The next slide, I think, is the just an invitation to everyone to first of all, how to stay engaged with the next 30 and the Possibility Panel. Obviously, the website is one place, and on the website you can subscribe to a newsletter where we try to send out updates based on what's going on. We've got a lot of sessions and activities happening over the next couple of months. The 2 upcoming sessions are booked. You'll see them there, and I'm going to elaborate on them in just a second. There will be several others, at least 4 more that will be booked in the next week. Sorry, they're not going to happen in the next week, but they will be booked in the next week, and they will follow through to from early February through till early March. So those will be on topics. These 2 that are already booked are on inclusive social fabric and on energy and climate. There will also be sessions on talent, which came up today, on the provincial budget, which came up today, on health and wellness, which came up today too, and others too. And the next one is Thursday, January 28th. It's also an evening session on inclusive social fabric. And Lori, you mentioned the word belonging, and the concept, or even that word, came up several times in conversations here, and as did, the idea of a story and a narrative about who we are. I just want to put an extra word in for that upcoming session, because it really is about how do we build a place where everyone feels like they belong here in Alberta. And so building an inclusive social fabric. There'll be 8 different members of the Possibility Panel who will contribute to that session, and we look forward to having you there. The complete and evaluation survey, we mentioned at the start, this is an experiment. And so already we received your feedback on our warm-up sessions and adapted our sessions based on that. And we're going to be doing the same. So you'll receive an email with a link to a survey. And we really, really sincerely and deeply appreciate if you can take a few minutes to fill that out, because it will help us to design future sessions and to know how we might need to tweak this to make it even more productive. So the next sessions we'll be continuously tweaking and adapting based on how these go, and that will be largely based on your feedback. So please respond to that survey if you can take a few minutes. And follow us on Twitter, and of course there or anywhere, share your reflections on this session with your own networks and on this topic. So as we head for the wrap up, I will just invite you. Sorry, there's all the info. I'll just do a checkout. The question is going to be, what's most alive for you? And for those of you who attended the first 2 warm-up sessions, this is familiar. We're going to do it again. So head, heart, and hands. We invite you to answer that question with either a question you're leaving with, that's the head, a feeling you're leaving with, that's the heart, or an action you plan to take to follow this up, that's the hands. So we'll do this one last time in Slido. What's most alive for you as you leave this session? Either an idea, a question, or an emotion that you're leaving with. Hope. Challenge your assumptions. We're already diverse. Curiosity, excitement, momentum, belonging. Stability is better than diversity. Todd, you got your point through. That's good. Positivity, passion, energized, coordinated and planned collaboration. Tell the story or stories. Albertans are positive. Great. All right, well, as the answers to this come in, I'll thank you again for joining us and for sticking through 2 hours when you could have been watching the inauguration concert. Thank you very much for that. And you can keep the answers coming in here, and otherwise we'll sign off and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks very much. Oh, and the Oilers finally won a game. Great, that's good to see.
It's good as long as it's not against the Flames.
Well, we'll debate that at a future session.
Yeah, okay, that's a total different session. Thanks, everyone.
I just want to say thanks so much for
Bye, everybody.
Great information session. Well done,
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. See you out there.
Enjoyable as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you.
It's like saying goodbye to everybody at a party. Bye. Thank you. I miss parties.
But the response is, I thought you left like an hour ago.
What, me? Oh, yeah.